I didn't want to try to talk like an Australian because I'm not, but the title of this is supposed to be FZ Aussie, like Aussie, short O, phonics, octopus. But every time I say it, I feel like I'm trying to sound Australian. Oh yeah, the title of this is FC Aussie. So I always just call it FC Oz. But just because I feel like I'm being rude. I'm not trying to be. But that's the name of this, FC Aussie. Because it's in Australia. Get it? All right, never mind. Hello, my name is Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie. Here on this channel, I am currently ranking and reviewing every single Frank Zappa album released after he passed away in December of 1993. I have done the ones released prior to his passing elsewhere on this channel. If you are interested, and out of the 55 post Zappa releases, I am now on number 17. FZ Oz. A great release. If this is the first video you're watching, you're like, it's 17 and it's great. The other 16, okay, the other 16. Phenomenal release. This came out back in 2002. It is a complete show. We'll get to why it's not complete in a while. From 1976, but for the most part, a complete show. January 20th, 1976, an Australian show, hence the title, FC Oz. It was the first full show release that had been released after Frank passed away. So it was kind of exciting to have this come out because it was like, I was someone who was into bootlegs and into live shows and trading tapes, and I have websites out there reviewing all these shows. So this was great if this was the direction they were going in, like complete live shows, warts and all, just give it to us. And they did. And it's a great show. This show, this release, and the one that's going to follow, number 16, are both very similar in that they're complete shows, and they both have very, very definite vibes about them. The vibe of this show, I think, is one of Frank's best. It really has a relaxed vibe. Not saying that the music is always necessarily relaxed, but it feels like a band. And it feels like they're just in a club putting on a show. And it sounds like they're having fun. And there's a lot of songs and a lot of solos. And everybody gets a chance to have fun. And just the entire feel of the show just feels great. It reminds me of, yes, the Fall 74 shows in that there's this sort of relaxed thing, and when we need to step up, we step up, but it is just a great energy. In the band, I guess I haven't brought that up, so it's the last time Frank would be on guitar by himself and there would be no other guitar players. So I think that's pretty noteworthy. So it's Frank on guitar and vocals. This would be Napoleon Murphy Brock's last full tour. He would come back for a short run in '84 on vocals and sax. Roy Estrada is back. He's been 75 and now on this winter 76 tour on bass and vocals. Bazio is still around from the Bongo Fury tour. He would be there till the end of 78, the end of winter 78, before the fall 78 tour. And then you get Andre Lewis on keyboards. And Andre Lewis, from what I gathered, comes from sort of a proggy funk background. And he brings he's not flashy. He doesn't have sort of this signature sound that Tommy Mars has. You listen to a Tommy Mars band from like 77 to 78, okay, that's Tommy Mars. 80, 81, 82, wow, Tommy Mars was around a long time. Andre Lewis doesn't have that, but he brings a lot of really good sort of prog sounds and a prog vibe, and his solos are kind of relaxed, proggy, kind of like not as crazy as like a Rick Wakeman Yes solo, but more of a Tony Banks, maybe a little more like thoughtful Emerson, Lake and Palmer piece. But he brings a definite energy that is different. And in certain songs, there were certain moments like Filthy Habits, I think particularly, where he has just this organ sound that's just kind of lurking in the background, and it's not trying to draw attention to itself, but the support it provides and sort of the atmospherics that it just gives the band. I just think it's one of the neatest sounding, one of the just best feeling shows that has been released. The one that follows, which is also a complete show, that my number 16, I don't like the vibe as much. It's definitely a much more frantic, frenetic vibe, but the solos on that are are better and are still a little mind-boggling to me, which is why I rank that at 16 and this one at 17. But both shows are just incredible shows. But here are the really, really special things about this show. So whoever picked this out and decided this was the show that was going to be released from this tour, excellent job. Really. The only thing that you could possibly complain about is like saying, oh, I like the solo from this show better. That's the only other reason you would release another show. Because here are the treats on this show. You get a song it's called Canard Du Jour. That's Let's Move to Cleveland. It was performed 6 times, a couple times in 75, 4 times in 76. This is the third of those 6 performances. It's about 3 minutes long, a little over 3 minutes. And if you're familiar with Let's Move to Cleveland, you're going to recognize the song. It's got that but then instead of like playing out the full thing as it does in like the 80s, it's a very like dun 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 dun. I mean, it's just like really kind of truncated and like it almost seems like the thoughts aren't complete. There's a little kind of solo where Frank tries to figure out what to do. Obviously, he never did back then because this is the third of 6 performances. Wouldn't come back until the 80s. But it's really, really interesting to listen to this and then put on like the 18-minute Does Humor Belong in Music version or however long that thing is and just look at what Frank did with something and then it just had to like develop in his mind before it returned, or he had to find the right players. You know, he had to have Steve Vai in the band to go, oh, now that I have Mars and Vai, I know what I want to do with this piece of music to see what it later becomes. So to me, that's why releases like this are like, bam, yes, because you kind of get to see the thought processes of Frank. There's a song called Kaiser Rolls. It was only performed 3 times. This is the second of those 3 times. It is a weird little song. Napoleon sings. It's about a stumbler man. It's got some neat little, different melodies in it, but it's just kind of an interesting little song. More something along the lines that would have been right at home on Zoodalours, the album, like as between like Finder Finer and like Miss Pinky or something. It's just got that kind of sluggish, but a little bit more upbeat vibe than those other 2. Then you get the last ever performances of 2 songs and almost the penultimate performance of another song that had been played all throughout 75 and then only once on the winter 76. Same band, but Frank would drop these songs, 2 of them forever after this performance. So you get the run of songs, which is Lonely Little Girl, which has a great Frank guitar solo in it, pretty much riffing on the theme, but it's great. Would never be played again. Take Your Clothes Off when you dance. Take Your Clothes Off when you dance. Take Your Clothes Off when you dance. Funky little keyboard solo. This would only be played again once as an instrumental on Halloween 78. Hopefully they release that this year. But then never again after that. And then What's the Ugliest Part of Your Body, which would never be played again after this performance. And one of the great things, and I think I mentioned this on the Joe's Menage video, the 75 thing, one of the best moments in Frank is the What's the Ugliest Part of Your Body into the da-na-na Chunga's Revenge opening. One of the best moments in Frank. So you get the last performances of 2 of those 3 songs and the penultimate performance of the other one. And then you get the very last performance out of 3 of Keep It Greasy for this sort of early version of it. Pretty much sounds like Keep It Greasy. This one emerges out of the Zoot-Allures sort of Ship Ahoy madness. After this, it would not be played again until the Fall 78 tour, so it would disappear for that entire time. But it's interesting to see, Frank had this other song and just didn't have the right personality needed in order to like make it happen. So you get all those really interesting things. And then at the end of the show, you get a rehearsal version, like a sound check version of Kaiser Rolls. So those things are worth it. But here's what else you get. I've already been talking for a long time. But what this show really boils down to is you get 3 or 4 really good songs performed really well with some pretty interesting instrumentation. Napoleon Murphy Brock sings them well. Roy Estrada's got some interesting bass choices. Andre Lewis's keyboard work is always just enhances the songs in the right way. And then Baggio is Baggio, right? And then you would get longer songs where everybody gets a chance to solo. Everybody. Andre, Frank, Napoleon gets some solos. Basio gets a drum solo at one point. Roy gets to mess around. Everybody gets stuff. And then you got more songs. And then you got more longer songs. And it's just a really, really well-balanced show. If there's one problem, it's the third track, the Poodle Lecture. But I kind of don't mind it on this because it's almost like once I know we get past the Poodle Lecture, I know what's ahead is like this long journey that I'm like, okay, I just needed to settle into this. But I'd rather not have the Poodle Lecture, to be honest. So this is the track list. You get the Horden intro, the Incan art vamp. To start these shows, they would play naval aviation and art over the sound, over the speakers. Band would come in and play this drum beat. Eventually, Frank would start playing the Inca Roads theme, the da-na-na-na-na. He's not yet doing that. But it's still called Incan Art Vamp because eventually that drum sort of beat that rhythm that they would play would feature would be the support for that Inca Roads intro. It's not here yet though. Stinkfoot follows. It's a really good Stinkfoot. In fact, during that part where they're like, here Fido, bring me the slippers, that gets really trippy and weird. And I think that's the first time you feel like the effect of Andre Lewis's sort of like prog background and just, that textured feel that prog rock has. Frank even mentions being stoned and it kind of has a head trippy sort of feel about it. That goes into the Always Miserable Poodle Lecture. Do not like this thing. Frank talks about man, women, and poodles. I don't know. Dirty Love, which is a nice kind of churning, canned heat, chugging Dirty Love. That goes into Filthy Habits, which is just Filthy Habits, man. It just sounds great. I don't think there is a Filthy Habits as slinky and sort of sinister as the Sleep Dirt studio version. But as a live version goes, this one is great. Frank rips off a good solo. Andre Lewis's organ support is amazing. After the Filthy Habits, that's sort of your first instrumental break. Then you get How Could I Be Such a Fool? I Ain't Got No Heart, I'm Not Satisfied. You got a nice freak out run there of songs. And then that goes into Black Napkins, which is great. I think this Black Napkins includes an Andre Lewis solo and then a Frank solo. And as I've said before and will say again, they can just release every single Black Napkins Frank solo and I would be happy. Just one CD, 2 CDs, 5 CDs from 75 and 76. Just great. That goes into an advanced romance, and this is a really good advanced romance. This is another one where Andre Lewis and just his presence and his energy and his keyboard playing really makes this a little funkier, a little different, a little spacier at times. The middle part is fun. Everybody's getting a chance to just jam. It's just a really good, fun performance, and it sounds loose, and it sounds like you're in a club and there's smoke and everybody's just like, Frank's letting the band do what the band wants to do. There's just a really relaxed, jammy vibe about this whole thing, and I think Advanced Romance kind of captures that better than anything. That goes into the Ellen. Oh, and here's one of the best parts of the show. So Frank recorded these things reel to reel, right? There wasn't a really good way to record live recordings. And so somebody had to switch the reels, and so on this performance, you can notice it particularly strong, I think, in Kaiser Rolls and in one other song, maybe Zoodlers, I think it is. The sound quality takes a dip, and they substitute like bootleg recordings, and then once like their flip ends, they produce it right back into the reel to reel. So even though you get like a 20-second sound quality dip, it's a pretty uninterrupted flow of music because of the way that they've been able to edit it. Apparently, one of those flips occurred in Honey, Don't You Want a Man Like Me, and either it was really bad or something, but they left Honey, Don't You Want a Man Like Me off of this completely. So that is why it is not a live show, because it is missing that song, and I am okay 100% with that decision. Also, 2 other tracks. I think it's How Could I Be Such a Fool? The first minute and a half of that is missing from the reel to reel, so this is from a different show. It's a pretty smooth edit, and I think there's a weird edit at the end of Muffin Man. If you listen closely, there's something's up with the rhythm. There's missing a beat at some point. So, but anyways, they don't hurt the integrity of the show in any way. Both those songs were performed here, but just as an aside. So you get the Illinois Enema Bandit, which is a really good version of that. Again, Frank gives like a 2-minute introduction about what the song is about, which I don't need, but I forgive him. Wind up working in a gas station, which is always amazing. And then really the only disappointing thing about this particular show is the torture never stops. Frank introduces an Australian harmonica player who comes out, plays the harmonica for not very long at all, and then they just go into Canard Du Jour's. So Frank doesn't do a torture solos. They don't finish the song. Kind of obviously you'd like to hear a torture solo, but I can't say it hurts my enjoyment of the show because there is so much other incredible stuff in this show. But one little complaint, if there is one. That's disc 1. Disc 2, you get the Canard Du Jour's, Toujours, into Kaiser Rolls, into Finer Finer. I will say this about Finer Finer. I've realized that I don't think that song realized its potential until the 88 tour. I think all other versions are pretty sluggish and kind of boring, and it's really the 88 version which brought that song to life, in my opinion. Then you get Carolina Hardcore Ecstasy, a song which I think is pretty much underrated, or maybe it's not. I think it's a fantastic song. This is a fantastic version of it. It is such a weird song. Like the bands that did it and did it well, 75, 76, and 84, didn't do a lot of other things well or aren't out there as much. You know, they're bands that like, we don't have a lot of material, or in the case of 84, I don't like 84. So it's weird that this one song, which I think is so incredible, got stuck in these really strange eras of Frank's music. Then you get the Lonely Little Girl, Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance, What's the Ugliest Part of My Body, Triptych. Then you get an amazing Chunga's Revenge, which is always good. Basio gets a drum solo. That drum solo always, Frank emerges out of the ashes of the drum solo and plays Zoot Allures. Zoot Allures has that very skeletal opening that you can hear on You Can't Do That on Stage, Volume 3. Then that goes into a really, really good kind of just straightforward solo, and that goes into the Ship Ahoy, which has that sort of voltage cutter thing or whatever, which messes with the voltage, so you get that wah, 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 whatever that effect is. So you get that entire thing. That entire run from What's the Ugliest Part of Your Body to the end of Chunga's Revenge is like almost 30 minutes long, and it is ridiculously good. It is just phenomenal, and it is so... Like, compare this to the one that's number 16, which is very frantic and crazy and like mind scrambling. And as crazy as all this is, it still has like there's a consistency vibe to it. There's a very 70s, just like prog rock concert hall vibe that I love. That goes into Keep It Greasy, which again sounds like Keep It Greasy. Not that great of a song, but it's interesting because would be the last time until 78. Then you get a Dynamo Hum, Camarilla Brillo, and a Muffin Man to close. So some standard closers, but well performed and fun. And then the second disc closes out with Kaiser Rolls, the rehearsal version. But that's it. That was a lot to talk about. I love the show. I don't see how you could go wrong with this show. The guitar playing is fantastic. Andre Lewis is amazing. It sounds good. The set list is good. There's a lot of rarities. Like, what is there not to recommend about the show? I'm kind of shocked that it's at 17, but then I look at what the other 16 are. I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. This is ridiculous, man. Frank released a lot of really good stuff, and I'm done talking. Thanks for watching. If you have this, let me know your thoughts. Again, comment below, all that stuff. I generally listen to these CDs one last time before I make this, and so I get all pumped up. I'm like, this is a friggin' good show, man. How is this 17? But it is, because it's random and arbitrary. Really, right? Okay, peace, all that, bye.